Well, welcome to BareLead, where we strip down leadership to its raw, unfiltered, unabashed truths. I'm Pooja, and today we're diving into bold decisions, vulnerability, and what modern leadership looks like for women today. My guest today is Wendy Morée, and I can't wait to hear her story and for you to hear her story. So, welcome, Wendy. And I would love to have a little bit of an introduction about yourself.
Thank you, Pooja. It's so nice that you have me. So thank you, first of all, for having me. And so my name is Wendy Morée. I am 47, living in the Netherlands, in the south of the Netherlands, close to Breda. And I worked 20 years in corporate technology. And in 2024, I decided to leave corporate technology and to found my own business, Moreequality. And that's how we met. I was at a keynote presenting about nostalgia and technology, and I will dive into the company and how my journey has been and still is going. And I will talk more about that.
Sounds really good. And I think I've been looking forward to this conversation for almost 2 months now, because the first time I heard you speak at the WEC keynote, and one word that came to my mind when I heard you talk was like audacity. This is what it looks like. This is what it looks like in person. And I'm glad to say that you inspired the topic of this first session, which is audacity. So I want to start from the beginning and understand a little bit about your journey and how you arrived at leadership in your field.
Yes. So how I reached here was I was 27, and somebody said to me, "Do you want to work in technology? There's a company in the Netherlands, a US corporate that throws amazing parties." And I just need to be part of this journey. I need to be part of this company. So I went on job applications to become a PA, a personal assistant. And after 6 conversations, they said, "You're hired." And I actually said, "Well, I'm more of a salesperson. So if you don't mind, I don't take this role, but I really like the company. If you have a sales role, please phone me." So they phoned me, they returned a call a couple of days later, and they said, "We created a headcount for you to start as a sales support." And I received a question during that interview. This is in 2005, 2006. And they said to me, "What's the difference between hardware and software?" And I said, and I couldn't answer. I said, "I don't know, but I can learn." And still they created a headcount, and still I was able to come there. And from being 27, being young, knowing nothing about technology, I was so eager to learn, to embrace, to work hard, to ask the right questions, but also to learn the corporate politics.
Yeah.
And from that, actually, from being a sales support, coming with the sales to the meetings, working on their quotes, I just grew. And every year, every 2 years, I made a promotion, and I was very vocal about where I wanted to go. I stayed with that company for 10 years, first in the Netherlands, then I moved to London, stayed there for a couple of years. And then Salesforce, a big corporate, US corporate company, was chasing me because there aren't as many tech women that are vocal or are being seen or being heard. So they found me and they asked me to come and work for them. So in 2016, I decided to take a step to Salesforce, which was a lot smaller back then, a lot smaller company. There weren't even 1,000 people in England. And then I started working there. My mother wanted to move back to the Netherlands. And then Salesforce helped me moving back to the Netherlands. Still worked there for a couple of years, still made promotions, also became the president of the Women's Network when I moved back. So I moved back in 2018. I really wanted to be a role model, an example for others. I really wanted to speak up. Me Too was happening back then, and I really wanted to speak up and create a safe environment for men and women. And to start working together in a good way. And I became the regional vice president for Northern Europe for several product lines within Salesforce. I was thriving. I was really happy, really successful for 20 years at the time of my life. But as you know, the listeners don't know, I'm a single full-time mother. I have a little girl on my own of 8 years old. And I just wanted to be more of a mom,
Yeah.
less stressed and enjoy life. And also my ego by now is fulfilled.
Mm.
I by NBC, I've been called out as one of the top 35 global female leaders last year in 1 month by the Washington NBC. And so my ego is fulfilled and I have materialistic everything I want. And
Yeah.
I also learned if you earn more money, you're just going to spend more. So that was the time that I decided I'm going to take a big leap, very scary, still
Yeah.
very scary, and start my own company focusing on nostalgia and technology, but which is called Moreequality.
Right. That's actually very, very incredible because not only did you explain how you got into each of the promotions that you did, despite not necessarily fitting the mold of
Yeah.
sales. And I think a big role that must have played in your life and your journey is just asking.
Yes.
Asking for what you want. And I think that's really where audacity and bold decisions also just come into play. So I want to understand, is this how you have always been, or is this something that you always thought that you always had the personal agency to ask for more? Because what happens with women specifically is that even if they meet the criteria 90%, they talk themselves down to 60% even before they enter the interview. But you did the opposite. You said, okay, I don't have experience, I'm learning, I want to grow. And you grew and you proved. And I think the fact that big corporations were chasing you also goes to prove that you consistently demonstrated skill and expertise, not just the desire to learn anymore. So walk us through a little bit about how Audacity shaped you and your career a little bit before we get into the other beautiful
Mhm.
parts that you mentioned about being fulfilled.
It started when I was young. So I have ADHD, or how do you say that in English? And when I was growing up, that wasn't known. So in my primary school, I scored really bad. The lowest level actually I got for my school after, which is in the Netherlands, was VMBO or
Mm,
MBO
mm,
MAVO. And it wasn't, and I always thought that I wasn't clever because I couldn't keep up and I had a lot of energy and I didn't realize I had a lot of energy because that was just the case. And then I went to the first school, and for a MAVO, there they say that takes you 4 years. And it
yep.
took me 5 years because suddenly I became popular and I wanted to be part of, not going to school in the lunch break and, being the most popular girls in school because suddenly people liked my energy and
Mm,
I didn't have to sit down constantly in a class. But still, I didn't have the capability to learn. Well, I did, but one of the things with ADHD is if you don't understand why you need to learn it, you probably don't.
care.
Like if you understand the reason behind it, you
Yeah.
need to learn French because need to go to Paris tomorrow, no problem. But you need to learn French because I want you to know these 100 words. I was like, yeah, no. So I've always been like the strange one in the whole kind of family, or like the school family. And I've been told off a lot. And I've been told that I wasn't good enough, smart enough. I always had to fight for my place.
Mm,
And very early on, I learned that if I'm very precise or concrete with asking what I want or what I need, or even to be the first person to raise my hand, it would help me with the grades. Even though I don't know everything, I'm getting a point extra because I'm the first.
mm,
So it taught me very early on that speaking up with confidence makes people believe that you're an expert. So I think very early on, I learned how the rewarding system works.
right.
And with my personality and with my big energy, I needed that to be successful. And only at a later age, actually, when I became a mom and my daughter was tested, they said, oh, you're highly intellectual.
Mm,
And that didn't fit in the system. But there is, you can be really smart, but if it's not in fitting in the right system, so it's
Yeah.
both ways. So it's not about how clever you are, it's about how you are learning to speak up
Mm.
and ask for help and know where you want to go.
Right. And I think you mentioned it a couple of times, the importance of reward structures. It actually really tells you what kind of behaviors will be rewarded and which ones not. And I think it's very interesting because I'm reflecting a little bit as you speak on also the system that I come from, which is all about preparation, a lot of, just making sure that you know everything before you speak. Whereas what I'm hearing from you also is just raise your hand, ask for what you need help with, and then the system is going to bend around you. So it's a very interesting contrast because I think when women specifically move countries and when they move to positions or different roles, they carry with them that baggage of reward structures. So for example, for me, obedience, compliance, sincerity, hyper resilience, all of these things were rewarded in the system that I come from. Whereas in the Netherlands, I think it is about taking initiative, being bold, and asking for what you want. Otherwise, you can just be extremely competent and nobody's going to look at you. So I think it took a while for me also to understand what you're saying. And, about 6 years in, now I know what works. So I also want to kind of dive a little bit into the part that you mentioned about how Audacity shaped your leadership, and can you share a bold decision that you made that really defined your path and what you learned from it?
Well, there's two paths, right? Because the new path is being an entrepreneur. That's the
Hmm.
boldest decision I've ever made in my life, to let go of the golden gauge of
Yeah.
corporate life and to completely go full in on my own. And that's the boldest decision I've ever made. And that's also has made me grow in my leadership style the
Mm.
most, because people can prepare you for changes, or you think you're prepared. And what I've learned that fear and excitement is the same emotion. So something is really scary, and then you make the decision and you can't sleep because of the nerves. And then when you get excited, it's the same nerves. So
Yeah.
you have the same kind of emotion, um, and you don't know when that moment flips. And I quit my job, or I negotiated to leave Salesforce in December 2023. I left on the 1st of May, and I founded my own company on the 1st of May. I think already that decision to have that conversation with Salesforce
Mm.
was already one of the biggest steps, or the boldest steps I've ever done before Christmas, because suddenly I put myself out there like, this is my dream. I want to chase my dream. And how do you feel about that, Salesforce? So that was already very bold.
Yeah.
Uh, I worked with my teams always with one principle, which is you need to have a backup plan.
Mm.
So I asked people in my team, especially when the redundancies began, I asked everybody in my team to present to me their backup plan.
Mm.
So their resume, they needed to have spoken to headhunters, and I wanted to know what their first step would be if they would be made redundant. But I also made that for myself, and I think that pushed the whole process and a bold step to leave and to start my own company, because I wanted to set an example. This was after COVID, and I said, very simple. I said to my team, my backup plan is I bought my own phone. Big thing after 20 years, because I had my corporate phone. And I
Mm.
said, if I'm going to be made redundant tomorrow, I want to have access to my banking, to my WhatsApp, to my own phone number where people can reach me. So that was one of the first things I showed the team. And then I said, okay, the second thing I've done is I decided I want to found my own company as a ZZP, we say in Holland.
Yeah.
I registered the company name. I didn't know what to do with it. I just registered the name. I took my accountant with me as proof, like I knew what I was doing. I didn't. And I registered on the 1st of January 2023 as a ZZP. And then I had all these conversations with my team about their backup plan. And I asked them to have these conversations with the headhunters and to know what they were going to do. And I showed them how I prepared my backup plan.
Mm,
For me, and I didn't realize that put everything in motion. Like I started to be more excited. Oh, I have now a company. I need to have a website. What am I actually going to do? And then somebody wanted to become my mentee. And I was like, oh, I've got a mentee and I need to think of a program. And suddenly it started to move. Uh, and in the end, I needed to also let go of half the team, but they were okay because they had their backup plan.
mm,
That was a very good way to be confident in taking a bold step, because you know how you fall back financially, emotionally, and what your first things are that you're going to do. And then and then December 2024, I had that conversation, or 23. So that's almost 12 months later. I
mhm,
had the conversation to say, hey, there's things happening, reorganizations, and I actually would love to be part of that. And then I left on the 1st of May. I changed my ZZP to a holding structure and a BV. And I
mm,
knew a lot better what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go with my own company. So it made that decision.
mm,
There's a long process up front.
right.
Those are like the little steps. But it's been probably the most bold journey I've ever been on, the entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and I think it's first of all courage. And I think what you also did was to minimize blind spots and risks, right? Because you gave it a little bit of incubation time to figure out what exactly you wanted to do. And sometimes that preparation, even when it's, when it's about the team or whether it's about yourself, I think that really helps prepare you mentally, because no decision or no redundancy is life threatening. And I think and that's how, I've been in HR for about over a decade now. And I think for us, it's a very functional process, but I think on the receiving end, it's a very difficult process. But I think if you have leaders like yourself, you're transparent, you're authentic, you're telling them exactly what you are doing, and I think you're leading by example. So these are the things we would teach in a leadership program, but you have
Yes.
kind of summarized them in this last answer. So I think you've also kind of made it look polished, because even though you didn't have a plan, but you communicated that there is a plan, and I think you figured it out along the way. But of course, leadership also looks a little bit lonely, vulnerable, hard.
Oh,
So could you also talk a little bit through those unseen parts of your journey?
definitely. And there is a lot of those. In 2017, I became pregnant with my then partner. And when I was 37 weeks pregnant, he made the decision to leave us both, and not to be part of the journey. And that was the first obstacle. I was still living in England, still working for Salesforce. And as you do, I think there's a couple of things that you do when life is treating you badly. You either drink, do drugs, go to the gym, stop eating, or start working.
Yeah.
I stopped eating and I went to work an awful lot.
Mm,
I wanted to work an awful lot, but I had maternity leave, so I couldn't. So I stopped eating. Then my body shut down. So the neighbors found me at home. That was February 2018. Had to go to the ambulance, to the hospital, and then the doctor said to me, you need to start eating because you're breastfeeding and your daughter is like 5 months or something. And you need to better take care of yourself because you can't continue like this. And that was an eye opener. I back then phoned the managing director of Salesforce UK, and I said, I need to move to the Netherlands because this is happening. I'm not doing well. Straight away, the next day, I could pick from 4 different roles, made a promotion, and moved back to the Netherlands. That sound polished, but it didn't. I bought a caravan in the Netherlands because I had a massive house in the UK for a lot of money in the Golden Triangle, which is called Harrogate. I bought a caravan in the Netherlands, and I was supposed to move in May with my daughter. I was 40 back then, with my daughter in the caravan for the time being, that my house got sold and I could buy a new property. A month later, I received a message from the bank and said, you are living abroad. That is not allowed. So you get a fine of 100%, and we're going to raise your mortgage fee to 5%. So my mortgage fee went up from, like, I don't know, 2.6% to 10% a month for a very expensive house. That also meant that my whole income went to that house and the mortgage and the council tax and everything there when I wasn't living there. So I lived from May 2018 till December 2019 in a caravan with a baby of 8 months old with 20 euros a week to live off. And that has been incredible harsh. I needed to sell everything I owned to be able to survive. I couldn't even buy diapers. 20 euros is not a lot of money to eat. Like I paid my bills, but that was what was left. And then my manager knew, and sometimes I was allowed to do my shopping and then, expense this. So Salesforce really helped me, but also I started working an awful lot. And I thought the only way how I can rescue myself and my daughter is to make promotion and to earn more money. And he left me with 150K debt. So I had a lot of shares and I paid off the debt, sold the house in, I think, October 2019,
Mhm.
bought a very old house in December 2019, and then COVID hit. But I had an international team for Northern Europe. So I just turned on YouTube and I started refurbishing the house, took the kitchen out, put a new kitchen in, took the bathroom out. Like I was on it because, again, first I didn't eat. Then I started working and then COVID came. So then I thought I need to refurbish this house. I need to do something. I should you want to have control or the feeling of control. In the end, the property where I'm now in, I bought this in 2023
Mhm.
and I moved in this house in 2024. I sold that house with a lot of profit, the other house, because I've refurbished it.
Yeah.
Uh, and also the house pricing went up.
Yeah.
And we moved in 2024 in summer in this house, my daughter and me. And I'm so proud to say that I've got a heated swimming pool again in the garden. And I've done this all on my own because I've lost my friends. I lost my family members that didn't want to be around me. My horse died. My dog died. I had to sell everything I owned. I was suddenly a mom. I was suddenly single. I was suddenly moving back to the Netherlands. And I lost absolutely everything. And it was only 6 degrees in a caravan in winter. Don't romanticize the fact that you're living in a caravan. And it was the happiest place and the happiest time of my life because I had nothing else to lose. So I could be completely who I wanted to be. And I think that moment, that in a year and 8, 9 months, something like this, has taught me to be my authentically me and to really follow my dreams, because when you lose everything, you probably will build it up again. But it's not an easy journey, I can tell you that.
Not, yeah. I mean, see, motherhood toughens you, but despite that part, I still have goosebumps when I listen to your story because I think that is really like hitting rock bottom and building yourself from scratch. And I think what happens is that you just have to choose yourself because
Yes,
people around you are just withering away because everybody has their own life to live. And without passing judgments on what people decisions people make, I think being alone with the daughter and having the kind of debt you had and recovering from it and also making the life that you have now, heated pool being a absolute bonus. I think it's commendable. So congratulations to you. And I think it's just inspirational because many of us just lose ourselves on the path where you just know that there's no positive light, there's no silver lining. And I think you used exactly that moment to say, okay, no, I'm going to turn this around, and you did. So that's
yes.
amazing.
But the truth still comes back, right? And especially as an entrepreneur, it is lonely. You get up in the morning.
Yeah.
And one of my traumas is finance,
Mm,
to be scared to lose everything again. And especially when you're a starting entrepreneur.
yeah.
Last year, December, January, I had to deal with my trauma. I couldn't run away. I couldn't go to the office because you're on your own and
Yeah.
you need to face your trauma. And nobody really prepared me
Mm,
for the loneliness, the trauma that comes up, and
yeah.
the fact that you really have to push yourself. I love it because I've grown more as a leader than ever before.
Yeah. Yeah, I think entrepreneurship is just extremely, extremely ruthless and
Yes.
doesn't spare you a day. And if you don't have it in you to wake up every day, you're just gonna be like, okay, I want to go back to the golden cage. Or maybe some parts of it are beneficial. Sometimes you also underestimate how comfortable life gets when you have the backing of a monthly paycheck, and that's also comforting for some people. So but you made the call, and the tough call. So I also want to kind of ask you this question about your advice for next generation of women. If you could give one piece of advice to that next generation of women, because women do have it a little bit harder,
Oh,
what would it be?
and definitely women of different cultures, expats, have it
Yeah.
even more difficult than women. There's two things I think that women of new generations, even older generations, but especially younger generations, find yourself a mentor within the company or outside the company that can help you understand the structures of companies and how the politics work.
Yeah.
Because your branding makes it if you're going to make a promotion or not. If your branding is wrong, you won't make it. You can be as good as you can be. If your branding is not on point or it's not there, you
Yeah.
might be overlooked. The second thing is, I absolutely understand that we are feminists and that we stand for being a woman and that we fight for that. And sometimes that can come across a little bit too harsh.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not failure to sometimes to pull back into your female energy. And
Right.
what I mean to say with that is I gave an example in a keynote last year somewhere, had a complete discussion with a younger generation, Gen Z, and that was a nice discussion because it made me realize that some people look at this in a different way. So what I do if I come into a meeting room and it's full with men, and for example, there's no chairs left.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, you see how men introduce themselves. They give a handshake.
Yeah.
They probably say their first name, the surname, and their title.
Yeah.
If we come in and there's no chair, we're probably going to stand in the back and say hi, and we don't even say our name. And if we ask to introduce, we start proving ourselves. I'm
Right.
Wendy Morée. I went to university. This is what I studied. It's not important.
Yeah.
We don't have to prove ourselves because we deserve to be in that room because otherwise we wouldn't be invited. So
100%.
introduce yourself as Wendy Morée. I'm CEO and founder, and just exaggerate a bit. Make it short, make it crisp, so they remember who you are. Now, and here's the female energy that I think that I used, which gave me this massive discussion, is when I see that there is no chair, and I'm the only one woman, or maybe there's two or three women, I'm not going to grab a chair for me because there's all these men.
Yeah.
So I wait till one of the guys says to me, "Oh, do you need a chair?" Because what then happens is if they fetch a chair for me from another room, I'm probably going to say, "Can you position the chair here?" And I probably position it somewhere very smart in the front.
Mm.
And it's not failure. It's not that you weakness, that sometimes you just grab, or how you say that you pull back into your female energy and
Right.
to use that for your benefit. And I
Right.
think the biggest lesson, it's like almost opening the door of the car, right? You
Mm.
don't have to drive the car. We women want to drive the car because we're like, we can drive and this is my car. But why don't you just be the passenger and let the guy drive? It's like that kind of feeling. And I know this is a massive discussion point that I have a lot with a lot of women, especially different generations.
It's very interesting, though. I think you can still be a passenger and still be the one deciding the direction. I think it's
Yes,
a very important nuance to have, as a woman, because sometimes you feel like, okay, why should the man drive and why should that happen? You can tell them where you want to go and
exactly.
still be
And
comfortable.
I think you hit, this is exactly what I mean. And I think you say it's so nice because we women are the leaders.
Hmm.
We're not the managers, we're the leaders. We decide the direction or we decide to get a direction, but we can change the whole atmosphere within a room
Yeah.
by just coming. If you have the mom look to somebody, that's like already female energy that we can
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
And if you are aware of that, to sometimes use that in your benefit, that helps.
Right. I think how you put it is also inspiring, and it's not exactly feminist, but it is kind of tuning into your feminine energy and making the odds work in your favor. So, thank you so much for sharing your journey and insights. And I think we're a little bit towards the closure of our conversation. And I'm extremely honored to hear your story, and I'm grateful that you trusted me with it. And of course, now our listeners are also going to be inspired. So I want to thank everyone who tuned in for BareLead. If you love this conversation, you can follow and subscribe us and leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Music. I'm Pooja, and I'll see you next time for more raw, stripped down conversations. And until then, keep it real.